Welcome to the Gain Momentum podcast, focusing on timeless lessons from senior leaders in hospitality, travel, technology, and food service. Today's episode is titled The AI Adjacent Executive, and I'm here with my special guests who are fellow Gain advisors, Vincent Somsen and Michael Goldrich. How are you both doing?
Doing
Good,
great.
Thank you for the invite.
Awesome. So, special episode today, AI Adjacent. And in a nutshell, that basically means using the latest tools to free up your time and automate so that way you can do ever more creative or important things with your time. I'd like to start off by digging down into what this term means. And I'm going to ask Michael Goldrich because he here has published a book on the topic called Too Many Hats, Too Little Time. So, Michael, what does the term AI adjacent executive mean to you?
Well, to me, and thank you, Adam, for having me on the program today, and Vincent. To me, AI adjacent just means leveraging the technology as a tool to be a more effective decision maker. I mean, that's all this technology is. It's all about facilitating, empowering individuals, executives. So to me, that's what it means adjacent. It's just an assistant to guide you. It's another opinion. As we shift to more data-driven decisions and move away from intuitive-based decisions, something like this is very helpful.
Cool. Vincent, over to you. Your focus has largely been on using AI and other tools to help specifically in hotel operations, whether for executives, managers, or frontline teams. Can you describe what the term AI adjacent executive means to you in a hotel operations capacity?
Yeah, for me, coming from a hotel background, having studied hotel management, having worked for Hilton and Marriott over the years, I always had these tasks that I knew were going to take a lot of time, are not going to have a large impact on the business itself. And now with AI, I can speed that process up. I can't take it away entirely, but as a hotel executive, whether you work at the front line, as a front desk agent, or on corporate level, I can make more use of my time.
Okay, so we're talking about artificial intelligence, and I think it's important just to lay sort of the groundwork for what we mean here, because artificial intelligence, there are several different types that have specific applications. The two that I want to bring into focus today are machine learning, whether there are various subsets within that, and then this newer one that gets all the buzz, which is generative AI. So can either of you, let's go back to Michael here, give a very simple explanation of what both those terms are?
Sure. So machine learning is basically taking data and making essentially a prediction as to what's going to happen from it. So it's taking what happened in the past, looking at that, and then learning from that, and then helping to make decisions in the forward. So to me, that's what sort of like machine learning is. And it's sort of like Netflix. In terms of you watch it, you watch certain shows, it sees that you like these different types of shows, so it can make a recommendation for you that will resonate with you. So that's machine learning. It monitors your habits. Now, generative AI is a little bit different, but what it is all about, it's about generating new content, new text, new video, new music, whatever, based on what it's been trained on. So it's all about predicting the next word, predicting the next image, it's predicting the next sound. It's all done on probability. It's all math, but it doesn't really know what it's doing. It's just making predictions. So to me, those are the two differences. What about you, Vincent? What do you think?
Yeah, no, certainly I agree with that. I think most of the people, it's important to understand, that these technologies, except for generative AI that has been relatively new, the AI in general has been around, for the last 20, 25 years plus. right? Only now that we have seen some transformations, particularly from and revelations from OpenAI in the last 18 months, basically, it has really picked up and made tremendous strides, so to say. But it has been around already. This is not something coming out of the blue sky, right?
Well, I guess more specifically for genAI is this new term that is getting a lot more buzz now is co-piloting. And can you, Vincent, describe what that means in the capacity of a hotel executive that is working alongside an AI?
Yeah, certainly. So you think of Copilot as an assistant next to your daily tasks. One of the ways that Copilot, the term Copilot, what one of the reasons why it's so popular, this term, is because Microsoft published this product out. Right, it has been integrated already with most of Microsoft tools, such as Microsoft Excel, and it's going to integrate more and more. Right, you can do your everyday tasks. Let's say create an Excel sheet or a presentation. It's going to take you maybe 1.5, 2 hours, whatever, 30 minutes. It doesn't really matter. It's going to learn from your previous decisions, from your previous designs, whether it's an Excel sheet or a presentation, and it's going to speed up this creation process, right? I believe that, for me, I would have come maybe to the same conclusion or the same work as I did without the help of a Copilot product or feature, but it's going to speed up that process. And in some cases, the more you train it, right, the Copilot on your decisions, on your patterns, it can also get potential, increased creative solutions. So learn from your creative thinking and your designs and create or make decisions that really follow your patterns and your decisions in the past.
So, getting into specific use cases now, because we got to drill down to some specifics aside from just dwelling on some theory. Can Michael, back to you, this problem of too much information in a hotel, too much data, it's siloed, you have guest data, business intelligence based on capital assets, labor data, all these things that need to be inputted and computed. Can you offer us some sort of specific examples of how AI is being used in the realms of on-prem financial reporting for the property level, above property portfolio analysis, or any other types of business intelligence?
It definitely. So I'm currently conducting primary research on behalf of the HSMAI Foundation. And specifically with this, I'm being asked to look at sales, marketing, and revenue management, how they're using generative AI in terms of recruitment, retention, and professional development. And as I'm talking to some of the sales leaders, they're talking about how they're leveraging, say, Salesforce Einstein that actually has a component of AI or dynamics. And what they say is that is able to collapse time because in the past where they might need to get an administrator to kind of do an SQL query for them, and they actually have to have the business analyst go. And so the sales leader will say, okay, this is the type of query I want. They bring it to the expert that can do it, and then they deliver the content back. And then they say, well, that's not just exactly right. Go back and forth a couple of times. Now the sales leaders can do that on their own and cut out that sort of back and forth. So there's a time savings here. In addition, there's apart from what you're looking for as a application on like maybe a business case, there is sort of a side case where it's about, as I focus on this retention piece or professional development, is about work and how people like work and what is their work. And you have work that's composed of two different parts. You have joy and you have toil. And the BCG said if you can have 10 hours or more of joy a week, you're not going to leave that job. But if you have 4 hours or more of toil, you're probably going to think about leaving. So you can leverage this technology to maximize joy and minimize toil. And most of the toil is in the administrative tasks. So if you can find a way to leverage this technology to minimize the toil, You'll retain the people. You'll actually have the cost savings of not having to go find someone else, which is 2 times their salary. So that is a real case of use of this technology.
So essentially, what you're saying is that utilizing technology is a way to preserve your teams by making their employee experience better.
100%. It's actually called the joy effect.
The joy effect.
If you make them more joyful,
Yeah.
they're happier, less likely to leave.
So, Vincent, over to you. Any other specific applications in hotel operations for artificial intelligence that can enhance this joy effect?
Well, I think it's what we talked about, these mundane tasks, right? Whether it's an agent or a corporate director of a region of one of the big brands, right? It's gonna bring joy to your life, whether you're an agent or a corporate director. I've seen it firsthand, and many people that we talk to, for example, at high tech, are also wondering, okay, how can I use this as a certain executive? And it can be done in a very simple setting, such as emailing, whether it's you're emailing, within your own team or to a guest, for example, or as an agent or a concierge reviewing, responding to reviews, right? I'm not saying take out the entire manual process of responding to reviews, but you can, for example, enrich the quality of that review, make it more personal, make it more tailored to that specific experience, bring together certain data sets from all different departments as a general manager, for example, and discovering patterns, and from those patterns, creating forecasts so you can increase your resource planning. It speaks to the very basic use cases of GenAI, for example, creating a simple email, but also really high level strategic decisions that you can make as an executive or maybe a general manager as a hotel. So across all sections of hotels, AI can do something for you.
Cool. Well, you mentioned forecasting, and the term underneath that is labor, 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 which
Yeah.
all hotels or most hotels are having difficulties with in various departments. I'm wondering if you could discuss some of the ways that AI is being used to help with the hiring process. And we've touched on the joy effect, which is the maintenance of the teams, but now looking at the hiring process and how AI impacts that specifically.
Yeah. So, for example, you can use artificial intelligence carefully, right? With background checks, interviews. You can, for example, create schedules even after the staff is being hired, right? Currently, and still at the largest brands, in our industry, creating schedules for hotels that have 800, 1,000 plus rooms, right? The ones that I worked in did, it was still manual, right? And you're talking about staff schedules that involve perhaps for banqueting events, 150, 200, 300 people on a schedule, and that was still being done manually, right? So deploying AI on creation of staff schedules is a very clear use case that has been proven to work, and there are specific vendors that you can reach out today that are available. In terms of retention as well, I mean, it's one thing to hire staff, but retaining is really where the gems are in our industry, I believe. And not only retaining the staff member, but also the knowledge that they create. Right. Whenever Joe the concierge leaves, the Grand Hotel New York, also a lot of the knowledge that he has created for the hotel usually leaves. The same goes for a maintenance manager or even a general manager. So there are currently ways to create digital twins of staff members in hotels that basically retain all the institutional knowledge that a staff member creates, so that the next concierge or the next general manager can actually build on top of the knowledge that these folks create, and not are that are not left to do this all by themselves and start from the bottom.
I think that's a good point to insert another term worth explaining with this AI revolution, which is the term is summarization. And I'm wondering, Michael, could you explain that term and how that would that would result from or intersect with these digital twins of a manager or person in terms of their knowledge base?
Yeah, so generative AI has a number of capabilities. It's able to generate text, it's able to classify, and it's also able to summarize. And what it does is it can read through the text that you provide it, and then based on however you ask it, it will summarize it however you want it to be by pulling out the key relevant points. But something that Vincent was talking about earlier regarding recruitment. So from the people I was talking to, one of the ways they're using this generative AI is in terms of writing job descriptions and making better job descriptions. And the other thing is part of the interview process. So in terms of you have a job description that the people are hired for, you can actually have their LinkedIn profile downloaded, you can have their resume downloaded, and then you can prompt it to basically say, here's the role, here's the person's background. What are 5 questions that I should ask that will make sure that this person is the best fit for this? So you can actually use that to help to essentially sort of summarize their skills and based off the job description, and then say, okay, let's look for the gaps, let's look for the opportunities of where this person might be successful. So that's another way to kind of look at it. But in terms of summarization, it's great at that, and also categorization. So, which is not something that Vincent talked about, but that's one of the great things about this technology is, let's say you have 100 things, and you say to this technology, put into 2 buckets. It'll put into 2 buckets and it'll make sense. And you say, put into 10 buckets and it'll find a way to find each of those 10 items into 10 different buckets. So it's able to look at the patterns, which we're talking about before is the mean machine learning, and able to kind of find some sort of connection between them to kind of organize it. So it's all about, and when you think about summarization, it's all about organizing ideas to the best way possible based on what was provided.
Okay, so I want to be devil's advocate at this point because we're talking about pattern recognition and getting into the correlation versus causation issue. And the term that I see emerging for those who are somewhat fearful or apprehensive about artificial intelligence is generalization, or the generalizability of machine learning or generative AI. So you have the pattern from machine learning that is based off of a database, and based on what you know within that database, you're making a conclusion that fits that data. And then from there, based on human assumptions that are inborn in that data set, it is actually fairly narrowcast, and you cannot reasonably use it to make predictive analytics or insights or actions that are outside of that specific use case. And this, I've seen this come up as a problem because, the whole idea of, oh, we're going to look at somebody's LinkedIn profile and their CV, and then we're going to use that to make questions. And then I've heard people come back and say, well, the LinkedIn profile doesn't really describe who that person really is. It doesn't really show their passion for hospitality. So how would you respond to that? And Vincent, I guess I'll go over to you. How would you respond to this apprehensiveness over the generalization of patterns based off machine learning?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. You can't base an entire decision off that decision of or the pattern that the AI establishes, and that's why it's crucial to still involve an interview and still to deploy or employ critical thinking on these decisions or that the AI suggests. Right, at least for now. Right, I think in the future when AI it has already been trained on a lot of data that is out here. But there hasn't been a time that there has been the generation of data and the creation of data hasn't been more than now, right? Than present day. So the more we feed it, the more it's gonna be intelligent, hopefully. But it's always good to check these decisions and not to only rely on these tools. But I think what Michael also says, you're anyway going to do research. It's going to take you anyway half an hour, at least why not employ AI to do this and provide some background that you're anyway going to do, some research that you're anyway going to do, right?
Yeah, so we're saving minutes, and
Yeah.
incrementally that adds up to something very profound, whether that is in HR or another department. Okay, so back to use cases. One area where we can segue from staffing and operations is into food and beverage, where staffing is so important all the way from the server, line cook up to restaurant manager. And I'll pose it to both of you based on your expertise. Where are you seeing artificial intelligence impact food and beverage operations and marketing as well?
I can start. The where I see it, and it has been deployed for a number of years, is really inventory management and waste management. Right, the vast majority of restaurants and F&B kitchens in hotels, they have no idea what they're wasting. Right, and using AI and normal technology that has been around for decades, putting a layer of AI on top of that, it can be very simple. There are vendors out here that the majority of the hospitality tech professionals know, using garbage bins with a scale that you can weigh your food on, throw it in the garbage bin, and it takes a picture before that, and it uses image recognition, right, to understand what you're throwing away, how what it weighs, 5 kilos of potato peels, whatever, and establishes a pattern over time, and recommends you certain procedures in order to reduce waste. What can you do with the waste? And it also already starts with knowing how much waste you produce and how much it's costing you, right? And measuring that is already going to provide you a lot of really practical insights to do so. But inventory management, the same. What do you think, Michael?
So I'll take a little bit of a different angle in terms of the human labor. So answering the telephone. So right now, people have to answer the phone, take an order, and say it's for room service. That is now actually being automated by AI voice agents, and they can answer it pretty much immediately. They get it right, and they can kind of collect all the information that people are asking for. Then they can automate it, send a ticket, and actually, work with another company in which a robot then delivers it to your room. So that could all be an automated, streamlined process. So that is one way in terms of F&B you can leverage this technology. But in terms of marketing, you have a lot of tools that are all about targeting, say personalization. But usually there's a little bit of a learning curve, and sometimes people aren't the greatest writers. So if you're going to personalize it, sometimes you may not know the best way to do it if you have a junior staffer. So some of these technologies are using the machine learning, using this generative AI to say, okay, what is the person that you want to target? All you have to do is basically say, okay, I want a business traveler, or I want a couple. And then based on that, it'll just create essentially a full campaign for you that you can then deploy across your website. So before, you would have to think about all the different branches, think about how you would write the text. Now it can essentially be all auto-generated for you. And after it's done, the reports that are created, where you used to have to kind of look through it and you may not necessarily fully understand it, now you can query these reports to understand how effective these solution was.
Okay, so we're getting into querying, and we're talking now getting back to the executive level. And I want to throw another buzz term that's emerging, which is RAG, or retrieval augmented generation. Michael, back to you. Could you define what this term means and then give us sort of its utility for hotel executives?
Sure. So RAG. So just to kind of get back to what it is. So understand the issue that derived this need for this. So this technology hallucinates. In terms of what hallucination means, some people just say it's lying, but you can't say it's lying because that means you're intending to mislead. This technology is not lying. What it is based on probability, it's determining the next best word, and it'll go across all that. And it's using it based off whatever data set it has to basically come up with those sort of calculations. So what RAG does is basically it looks at the answers that are giving and fine tuning it to help it come up with more accurate responses in terms of just coming up with an answer. Because this technology inherently, how it seems to be designed, it wants to please the person that's doing the prompt. So it sort of understands your intent of what you want it to say. So it's going to kind of give you an answer based off of that. And so that way it could be misleading because it can validate your initial opinion. And what this RAG does is essentially it's fine tuning. And basically it's taking the data, taking the information and adding another layer to it in terms of before it delivers a response, kind of checking it out and making sure that, yeah, okay, is this accurate what it's saying? And it's sort of like a second level validation, so to speak.
Okay. How does that help hotel executives? Let's say either the marketing automation we mentioned for food and beverage or something in the realm of financial reporting.
It helps because it makes you feel like the answers that you're getting have significantly less hallucination, so they're more accurate. I mean, that's it. It's basically it's a trust factor. So as we were talking about a little bit before, Vincent was saying about being you have to be critical thinkers on this. It's really important ultimately to have a human in the loop. You always need to have a human there to kind of make sure, because I was talking to a data scientist. He said, even if we're the best at what we do, the data is never going to be more than 93% accurate. There's always going to be problems with the data, always, no matter what. So you always have to have somebody there to think about it. And this fine tuning, this RAG, will make answers better, but they won't be perfect. And so it's just another layer of sort of ensuring that it is a better answer, but it's still the best it can do, but it may not be the most accurate. This still may be a little bit incorrect. What do you think, Vincent?
Yeah, I think you made a very good point, because if without data, without ensuring that quality of data and integrations, and you call it, like, sure, you can do very simple things such as utilizing ChatGPT to write your emails or responding to reviews. But to really take it to the next level, what we're talking about, I think you really need to ensure that you have structured and enriched and high quality data sets. Before that, it's going to be very hard to make impactful, transforming impacts to your organization, right? That's my belief. And it goes for any technology. To be frank, that you deploy on the property or headquarters level.
The whole idea of quality data sets sort of goes back to my whole thought about this generalizability. There, I said it properly. And that whole problem that makes people apprehensive. And before we move into the future, I'm wondering, because it seems like hotel executives, the future, they sort of need to know a little bit about AI. They should, but AI is based on statistics. So, what would you advise hotel executives to know about statistics in order to help them make better judgments about using databases and predictive mechanisms based upon those databases?
I got a great answer. All right. So here's what I have to say about that. So last week I was in Nashville at the CIO summit, and I was talking to them about this technology. And what I was specifically saying to them, I was talking about the generative AI productivity paradox. And what is that? So you have all this promise of this generative AI that's coming from Gartner. It's coming from Bain. It's coming from BCG, from McKinsey. You're going to see so much more productivity. You're going to have so much time savings. You have so much revenue. Then you see the news, you hear the hype, and you see what's actually happening. And very few of these projects are actually getting out of the pilot stage. In fact, Gartner says only 15% are getting out of that phase. And there's a lot of reasons why. It has to do with technology mismatch. It has to do with cost benefit analysis, revenue, all that. But the one thing that can actually help these projects to be successful is AI literacy. And that's to your point, Adam. Like, you talk about statistics, but it's more than that. It's understanding everything about this technology. It's not just prompting. It's not just ethics. It's not just the tools. It is actually understanding it all together. And then ultimately, a lot of these projects that are coming down from the CEO or the CTO. But if you take an AI literacy approach for your team and you show them how to identify these use cases, you show them the benefits of the automation, these new projects will actually come instead of top down and go bottom up. And by pushing up, they embrace it, because that is ultimately a big challenge in terms of some of these AI projects, is that there's employee resistance. The employees aren't engaged. But if they understand that this is going to empower them, that it's going to make them more successful, it'll help their career, they will be advocates and they'll work with everybody. So to me, you talk about statistics. To me, I say it's the whole thing is, I would call it AI literacy.
AI literacy. So looking ahead to the future, and we're talking about the future of hotels, of hotel culture, which perhaps there is some form of continuing professional development that involves teaching hotel teams on AI literacy. Vincent, where do you see the day, a day in the life of a hotel executive 5 years from now, insofar as how they are AI adjacent or using a copilot?
Yeah, it's a good question that I thought about as well. And for the past months already, what is AI going to do in co-piloting for hotelier, and specifically, I think on property level, whether you're a GM or front desk agent, how I would like to see it and how I think it's possible is constant suggestions in order to personalize a stay, in order to personalize emails, an experience, but also fast forward certain processes. I'm working on a forecast. I'm working on a brief for my morning meeting, right, with my department heads. That brief being enriched or even created for 80% by my co-pilot, by my AI assistant, providing certain insights from the last week, right? That usually would take me maybe 2 hours to create. Gets now I get instant access to. So I think in every touch point that I do as a hotelier, let's say a general manager of a hotel, I constantly get well put suggestions and certain automation suggestions in order to free up my time and spend it more with guests, spend it more with staff, create more face time with people that matter in the hotel, instead of these relatively administrative tasks. Yeah, that's how I see it, and already it's already possible to some extent, but not to a great extent in an overhauling flow, so to say.
So it's a constant evolution. It's not this punctuated evolution, like X-Men, like all of a sudden you're a mutant. It's, you apply one thing at a time, and it's part of the
Yeah,
culture.
yeah,
As Michael said, it has to be part from the
iterative.
bottom up. It's just part there, and everyone is looking for newer and better use cases. So are there any hotel brands that have embraced AI truly, not just as part of a press release? They've actually embraced it and are doing cool things under the hood or overtly to help guests and to help their teams.
There are certain brands out there. I wouldn't say there's one brand that deployed it in every department and whatnot. I think technology for brands such as Citizen M, is a chain, or a boutique chain, I suppose, that you could look at, where they created some really interesting applications. Of course, utilizing artificial intelligence as well. For example, guest messaging. But again, there hasn't been a brand that I would say, okay, they created an AI first approach. Whether that's good or bad, it really depends on the applications. But there are definitely some interesting developments that I'm seeing. As a boutique hotel chain, obviously make a lot of progress in relatively short amount of time, because you don't have as many decision makers and whatnot. So that also doesn't help for the larger chains. But there's definitely developments.
Okay, Michael, Any brands or companies that you think are on the bleeding edge?
From because I've been talking to a lot of the commercial leaders as part of the research that I'm doing. And to me, there it is still this year is sort of new. So like some of them told me, you know what, Michael, was so new last year, we didn't budget for it this year. So I think now people are going to be budgeting for it for next year. So I think right now there's people are kind of exploring the tools a little bit on their own, but there's no consistent uniform approach across the hotel companies that I've spoken to. I think each department's taking a little bit of a different perspective, and each manager is taking a little bit of a different perspective in leveraging these tools. Some of the tools that they already are using are, enhancing them with AI or this generative AI. So they're just kind of automatically getting it to an extent. But I think that, as I talked about before, like outside of that, people that are looking into automations may or may not be working, may or may not be succeeding as anticipated. But I think Atlantis has done a really cool job with their chatbot. They've built that themselves, and it's really powerful. And there are a couple of other technology companies that have really done a good job in enhancing their tools with this. But I think, as Vincent was saying before, like an AI approach, AI forward leading company, I haven't seen one that stands out yet. Maybe individual hotels, smaller hotels where teams can be much more nimble. But in terms of teams of hotels that have more than two hotels, I haven't seen anything yet. Doesn't mean it's not out there. I just haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, so it seems like there still is so much opportunity here for hotels to use AI to get ahead, whether that's on the staffing efficiency side, the team retention, or any sort of new marketing or innovations on the guest facing side to ramp up revenues. So to close out here, one final question. We've looked at hotel brands, we've looked at the opportunity. Are there any other types of artificial intelligence that hoteliers should be cognizant of?
Yeah, so I'll go first. So not necessarily type, but agents. So we know that Apple is going to be rolling out Apple Intelligence sort of like Q1 of next year. What does that mean? That means that this phone of ours that we have, it knows everything about us, right? It knows our personal life, it knows our professional life, it knows our emails, it knows our texts, it knows our calendars. So I think initially what's going to happen is people are going to be using these to do simple things like helping me get movie tickets. And people get comfortable with it kind of doing that. And it's called an agent. Now, once they get comfortable with that, they're going to give it more complex tasks. Schedule this meeting for me, schedule this trip for me. Now, when it starts to schedule the trips for you, that is when it gets interesting for us as hoteliers, because where is it getting that information from? And what is the person reviewing to validate that? So what's going to happen as people get more comfortable with their phone doing all of the sort of like hotel booking. So as a hotel that wants to get my eye attention, if I'm not going to the website, if I'm just looking at my agent, the hotels need to figure out how to get my agent's attention. And that's going to book the hotel. So that's going to be something that's going to be coming down. And that's something new that hotels need to think about.
So we're talking about intelligent agents, and there's a layer of conversational AI in there because it's essentially you're talking to Siri, right? And Siri's pulling all this personal information and then mixing it with what's out there in the web. Do you see companies like Apple, and assuming Google will come out with a competitive version for Android, do you see them monetizing this? Like basically saying, okay, well, if you want our Apple agent to recommend things, you're going to have to pay to get to the top of the pile.
My opinion is that there'll be a new distribution channel in which it goes to look first. So if I'm looking to book a hotel, it goes to this, whatever this is first. It won't necessarily be Expedia booking. It won't even be necessarily direct. There'll be all the hotels that kind of decide to line up to be on that distribution channel. And I think they'll get a piece of that. That'd be my thought.
Yeah. I mean, it's yet one more channel that revenue managers have to consider as part of the segmentation. Vincent, anything else that you see on the horizon?
Yeah, I think actually to build on top of that, I think it's going to look much like the SEO optimization. You're gonna see AI optimization. I think for your products, for your businesses, if you want to be AI optimized, you're gonna have to pay a premium, or you're gonna have to implement some very smart strategy in order to get into the spotlight of these algorithms. That's why I think it's super important. That's why there's a lot of debate on OpenAI, right? It started as a nonprofit and now for profit. That's why I think a lot of these technologies should be a public good, right? So it can be checked, it can be verified by the public, because it's going to have such a profound, and it already has such a profound impact on our lives, and even more as a consumer, right? And everything that you don't pay for, you're the product, right? So that's something to always keep in mind, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, 20 years of searching on Google for free and 20 years of Facebook likes and image posting. You are the product.
Yeah.
This has been a fantastic conversation, a lot to think about for hoteliers and any other technology company that's listening, or any other hotel brand that wants to innovate. Vincent, Michael, thank you so much for your time.
Likewise, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Gain Momentum podcast. To stay up to date, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Gain Advisors, head to gainadvisors.com.